If you're a Cleveland Browns fan looking for a break from the emotional roller coaster that is the price we pay from loving then hating our Browns, then a big welcome to Cleveland Browns Anonymous, a group therapy podcast to help you survive the season. So let's start our meeting.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Riley with my associate, Brooke Riley. Brooke, how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
All right. Well, the title of our show, we're going to work our a twofer here on this episode, Small Business Confidential, which is our podcast, and also Cleveland Browns Anonymous, which is our little our way of cleaning out the toxins in our system. And we figured while we're talking about the dysfunctional Browns, they're just so mismanaged once again, bleeds over into small business. So the title of our program today is Don't Hire Anybody Who Graduated from Harvard, especially if they went to Harvard Graduate School. That is not good. You can hire them if they went to Harvard and dropped out. Now, that's a great sign. That's a great sign of independent thinking. They dropped out. They said, I'm paying all this money. This is kind of bullshit. I'm out of here. Brad Pitt, he went to Columbia. He said, okay, I've got what I wanted. He went out of here. Bill Gates, he left Harvard after 6 months. I mean, the list is long of successful people who decided the Harvard degree wasn't worth the money they were paying or the time they were spending. So here we are with the Cleveland Browns. We've got two key players, Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta. That's the so-called brain trust, both from Harvard, and both have kind of taken us down an alleyway, and now we're at a dead end. Thoughts, Brooke?
I don't think it's a dead end. I think it's a cliff.
How about a pool with no water in it? Real deep pool. I mean, really, what is just maddening about this whole situation is, I'm a big fan of analytics, by the way. I'm a big believer in computer technology. I'm a big believer in learning from your mistakes, analyzing what you're doing. Is it working? Making the changes. And I thought when the Andrew Berry crew came in that they were going to be doing it differently. They're going to and it looked like they were for a while. They were picking up some good draft picks in the second round, JOK. Found some sleepers, Martin Emerson, Newsome, that deal they pulled with Denver where they had a lot of this extra cap money. They assumed what was that guy's name, that quarterback they picked up and they got a number 2 from Denver?
Brock Osweiler.
And I thought to myself, finally, we are no longer the fools at the poker table. And then Deshaun Watson. We're back. Chudzinski, Romeo, Pat Shurmur,
the clown,
the clown, Hugh the clown. I mean, we're back. It's just amazing. And you know what I really think is the problem? Let me connect the dots between Harvard. Look sometimes just because you went to Harvard doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. I mean, there is a Pulitzer Prize winning book written about 60 years ago, 55 years ago, by David Halberstam. It's entitled The Best and the Brightest. And it chronicled how we got into Vietnam. And you know how we got into Vietnam? There are a bunch of people from Harvard who took us into Vietnam and just would not admit a mistake. They kept sending more men into Vietnam. The quagmire became bigger. More people got killed. The country got split apart. Does that sound familiar with the Cleveland Browns? Although it's not horrific like Vietnam was across the board. But now you splintered the fan base. You've ruined the goodwill the Browns are now have become a laughing stock. And all because the smart people can't admit a mistake. And what's the mistake? Signing Deshaun Watson, leaving him out there when it was clear this guy was not that good. At least now, maybe later, maybe if he had a seat on the bench, like I said last week, Brooke, in the podcast. Have a seat in the bench. Here's the clipboard. Be Josh McCown here. Just watch and learn. Because right now, you don't know what you're doing out there. Game's too fast. You're going to have to go back to square one. Pretend you're a rookie. Suffer the consequences of your holdout for 1 year and your demand. You wanted to make all this money, guaranteed, fine. This is your purgatory right here. We're sending you back to the kitchen. Start washing the dishes for a while. They just couldn't do it. They just had to keep justifying. And then they played DTR last week over Jameis Winston. They stopped. They let Alex Van Pelt go for Steve Dorsey. Who's this guy? Dorsey.
Yeah, Ken Dorsey.
Ken Dorsey, who, by the way, got fired by the Buffalo Bills. What does that tell you? Over to you, Brooke.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shit show. A part of me, I did feel bad for Watson, seeing him get booed at the stadium. That was just as low as it gets. And I think one thing I read is he's wrestling with just to be done completely. But I mean, the only hope that I see is what the Commanders did, where they were a laughing stock quarterback after quarterback. But I mean, it just shows once you find the quarterback, he makes up for a lot of your bad play. So as you said, we're back being the laughing stock, and we're back to the mock drafts.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll second Deshaun Watson. Look, I would never boo. If I was at that state, I would never boo.
Yeah, I know.
In fact, I don't even blame Watson. I blame the coaches. When you've got a player that's underperforming, it's always coaching. It's not the player. I mean, we talk about that, Brooke, at work, our company, Riley Painting and Contracting for 50 years and Riley Properties. People struggle with managing. And their first reaction is, this guy is not working out. We need a new guy. And of course, I, as an owner, will always be asking the fundamental question, what have we done to coach them up? And coaching and managing are both intertwined here. Coaching is teaching. Managing is teaching. And both involve a little bit of confrontation. Confrontation with Watson should have been, you're not playing well. You just keep making the same mistakes. You're going to have to clear your head and sit on the bench. So to your point about drafting a quarterback, CJ Stroud, the guy with the Commanders, forget his name. They both look great. And Andrew Luck, who's going to turn around the Colts until he got pounded. But the point is that you've got to do some coaching. Look what the Browns did with Baker Mayfield. They ruined that guy his last year. You got to wonder what kind of coaching is going on. Is Stefanski getting into his grill when he makes some dumbass play, misses wide open players? Does Stefanski have Baker's back when he's getting ripped in front of his teammates by OBJ, releasing that film? I mean, these guys are pussies. The way they handle Clowney acting out, nobody doing anything about it. I think, that's the problem. When I'm interviewing an Andrew Berry or Stefanski or Paul Paul D from Moneyball, one of the questions I'm going to ask, tell me about your failures. Tell me how you failed and what did you do about it? Tell me the mistakes you made. Are you learning from your mistakes? Or are you trying to gloss over it and justify it? And that is what is making this fan base so surly that they would boo Watson. They're sick and tired of the bull and the corporate lingo they got to listen to. You got Stefanski at a presser who's saying week after week after week, it's not the quarterback. Like he said that about Joe Woods, right? It's not the defensive coordinator. It's the coaching. Now, you say that week after week after week. I wish one of the Mary Kay Cabotts out there or Terry Plutos or somebody there, Tony Grossi, would channel their inner Uncle Riz and simply say, you know what? I know what the fans are thinking when they listen that week after week after week, you have to figure out how to coach better. At what point in time do people say, maybe you don't know how to coach better? Maybe you either figure it out or you get fired. And fans are at a point now, there's a reason why Watson got booed. It's not Watson. He's a metaphor for just dysfunction and justifying mistakes. Over to you, Brooke.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be curious to see what happens at the end of the season. If there's anyone on the chopping block. I mean, they already made a change, which I thought was, I'm not used to that, but Stefanski's handing over the play calling duties. So I don't know. I think that's a good sign that, he's open to doing what it takes to turn this offense around.
Well, I hope he has a heart-to-heart with Mike Vrabel. I mean, there's a security blanket there. I mean, I'm hoping they're having some late-night something, some late-night chats, a little heart-to-heart, because Vrabel's been down this road before. But, I mean, I don't blame Jimmy Haslam. I think Jimmy Haslam is the last thing he wants to do is to do what he did with Hugh Jackson. Step in, override his brain trust, and pick Hugh Jackson over, by the way, Sean McCormick. Overrule his GM, Ray Farmer, and pick Johnny Manziel over Derek Carr. I think the last thing Haslam wants to do is to get involved telling Stefanski to play Watson. But I think if I'm the owner, if I'm Jimmy Haslam, the owner, I'm sitting down with Barry and Stefanski, and I'm questioning their decision-making process here. If I'm in a room with Stefanski, I'm telling him, listen, you cannot go in front of the fans and just push this pablum on them, this coach speak. They're seeing a very inferior quarterback that's clearly not ready to play.
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back. Getting your house ready to sell, or you just need some basic repairs, and you can't get anybody to come out or even return your phone call. Then call Riley Painting and Contracting, your home mechanics, for all of your home repair needs, from electrical, plumbing, roof repairs, and getting your house ready to sell. 45 years in the business, a AAA on the Better Business Bureau, and we're on the preferred contractor list in Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights. You can contact us by calling 216-371-8160 and leave a message, and guess what? We'll call you back.
Now, why are you guys playing them? To justify this mistake? Because that's sure what people think. And the locker room thinks. What do you think, Brooke?
I mean, my gut tells me that at the end of the day, Jimmy wanted Watson and he was willing to pay him all that money. So I think at the end of the day, was the owner's decision to buy, to give him that contract. Now, what we don't, I mean, all of this is speculation. We'll never know. What I'd be curious to know is whose call is it to keep playing him. But there's really no point in arguing about that now because, I mean, he's done. And, he probably played his last snap for the Browns.
It's going to be
So
interesting to see what Jameis Winston does. Can you imagine if he comes in there and pulls a Joe Flacco?
I think that's the dream scenario because he's somewhat young,
and has gone through his mistakes, learn from them, come on the other end a lot more mature.
And Stefanski seems to with the exception of Watson, and tell me if I'm wrong, the exception of Watson and Baker, like all these quarterbacks who have come in second string or third string, they've all, I'm not saying they're lighting the league on fire, but they play pretty well. Like Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, they always kind of step in and it's like, oh, wow, is this what his offense is supposed to look like? So I'm curious to see what it's going to be like on Sunday.
I think Stefanski coaches very well with those people who want to be coached. Jacoby Brissett, Flacco. He works with these guys that are grown-ups. When you've got Baker in his last year who's starting to pout and whine and be entitled. Look at our foreman, how they've handled people on the crew that start whining and complaining. They don't know what to do about it. They, A, don't know what to do about it, and B, they don't want to deal with it. Or C, they keep trying to do the same thing over and over, thinking that this guy's going to buy in, and when he has good results, maybe he'll listen to him more. You get Case Keenum, you get these veterans. I think Stefanski thrives with those people. I would not be surprised, and let's mark this down and bookmark this, Brooke. I would not be surprised as I speak on Thursday before the game against the Ravens, which, by the way, the Browns are double-digit underdogs here.
We're back.
I think this could be the time to jump on take the points and take the Browns. But I would not be surprised if Jameis Winston turns in just a workmanlike veteran presence who's going to move the ball down. When they get in the red zone, they're going to score because they're going to run Stefanski's along with Dorsey's offense or something. But I'm sure they're putting it in, and Winston's going to be the guy who's going to execute it. Where obviously Watson, you could see maybe the first series he would, he following his script, look good. Oh, thank you. Maybe we're turning the corner here, and then by the third or fourth drive, he's regressing back to scrambling around in the pocket. Linemen don't know where he is. He's overshooting, overthrowing people. But, Brooke, this game against the Ravens, the Browns are going to have Ethan Posick back. The only guy from their original O-line is not there is Wyatt Teller. And you got a very credible veteran guard. I forget what that guy's name is, but he's not that rookie Zinker. You got Chubb. I think you're going to see a good game from who's our wide receiver, third round pick last.
Oh, Cedric Tillman.
I think Cedric Tillman's going to have a great game. And then Judy's going to get some throws. You got Njoku. Look at people forget for a 1-16, man, we get a functioning quarterback. We're a lot better team than our record indicates. We're not the Carolina Panthers, but I don't think so. Go ahead.
I think that just shows how bad Watson has been.
Yeah. And how bad the coaching's been. Parcells Watson wouldn't last one half of a game if he played like that. He come off the sidelines Every sidelines he'd come off, he'd start crying. Because Parcells would just be reaming him. You should go on YouTube and watch Parcells reaming these quarterbacks. Romo, Phil Simms, Testaverde, but Parcells knew how to motivate these guys. Stefanski can't deal with entitled quarterbacks. Baker, third year, Deshaun Watson. And he has to go into a toolbox and look for a tool that doesn't exist in his toolbox. I mean, if I was the owner, I'd say, Kevin, I want you to take some courses on dealing with difficult people. Okay? And read this book, Bill Parcells' biography. And that's what Haslam's job, the CEO's job, is to make sure his executives have what they need and they don't screw up. His job is not to micromanage them. Play this person, play that person. He's supposed to challenge them to think differently and build up the skills where they're weak at. Go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if Stefanski sticks around and improves. I hate going through a coaching search, but I mean, I still have confidence in him. I think this has been a major learning lesson for him, I hope. And hey, I mean, if he can't cut it, and if really like he's been going into these meetings on Monday with the GM and the owner, and they're doing like an autopsy on the game. I mean, if Stefanski's been like adamant about, nope, like I can fix Watson, got to keep playing him. I mean, if he's been doing that shit, then he shouldn't be a head coach.
He has been doing that. I don't blame him. You know what? And I am, and Andrew Berry's nowhere to be found. That's typical Harvard there. These Harvard guys, these people with MBAs, they know how to slink around the system. They're not stand-up guys getting out there in front, taking heat. Stefanski's using coach speak. I would bet maybe we should get some sort of lottery. Stefanski's been driving this, not Haslam or Berry. And Berry is Berry. I am convinced came to Haslam and said, "Let's make a bold move and go after Watson." This has got Berry's handwriting, all fingerprints all over it, because he did that.
I see it as this is Jimmy Haslam's fingerprints all over it.
No.
Yeah.
No. You know why? It's Berry? Because he did that with Brock Osweiler. And Berry probably
he did that to get the draft pick.
I know, but on the other hand, Berry prides himself in thinking outside the box. Thinking outside the box with Brock Osweiler, where he's bringing NBA mentality with the cap to NFL. He prides himself on that. And they probably thought, we have an opportunity to get Watson, so let's go ahead and guarantee the money. Because down the road, he probably figured with, the Joe Burrow contract coming up, the what's his face down in Dallas, big time contracts. Let's get ahead of the curve because we'll pay Watson. We'll pay Watson.
Disagree.
Okay, but this was Berry's move, and Jimmy Haslam signed on. Now, if Jimmy Haslam came to Andrew Berry and said, "I want Deshaun Watson, I want you to do X, Y, and Z," and Andrew Berry didn't agree with that, Andrew Berry should have resigned. No, you hired me to do it. We're not doing this. So either way, Brooke, it's Berry and Stefanski's fault. It's their fault for staying on and agreeing to that craziness, right? Or they pushed Haslam to do it, and they're not saying anything, which is classic Harvard cover my ass. They excel at that. That's that C-suite stuff you read about all the time. So And you know what? And if I'm D Haslam, let's just say if this is true, what I'm pushing, Haslam's their steam must be coming out of their ears because they're getting blamed for this. Now Barry needs to man up. He needs to man up and get in front of the microphones and say, this was either my call, this was our call, or we pushed Stefanski to do it. They got to start admitting some mistakes here. And that's the hallmark of the Harvard crowd. They never make a mistake. They're too smart for that. So, and so if I'm Stefanski, you better start talking more with Mike Vrabel. And if I'm Haslam, you better sit these people down and say, look, I'm getting ripped here publicly. Now you come out and you tell them that this has been your decision, not the Haslams, right?
Yeah, in a perfect world, the person would come forward and say, this was my decision.
Yeah.
But I think the buck always stops with the owner.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
okay.
A GM has no power to give out a $230 fully guaranteed $1 million contract.
Well, he can take it to Haslam. He can say, this is what I think we should do. This is a bold move. It's his idea. And Haslam, yeah, he's got to sign off on that. But he's not the one that initiated this. This was Barry.
No, I think it was Haslam. So agree to disagree.
All right, we'll agree to disagree. Well, why don't we bookmark it there, Brooke? And we'll see how Jameis worked. And we will continue to follow the dysfunction with the Cleveland Browns. Good case study. All right.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Right.
We'll talk next week. Okay.
Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Browns Anonymous podcast with Mike Riley. We have a lot more content on the way as we get this new podcast started. You can also check out some of our other podcasts like the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast and other new ones that will start soon. On any platform that you find yourself listening to us on, feel free to leave us a like or comment or follow us. It always helps.